The hallway outside the executive offices smelled faintly of antiseptic and polished wood. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright, too clean. William Montgomery adjusted the cuff of his charcoal suit and checked his reflection in the glass panel beside the door. Confident, controlled, untouchable. He lifted his hand and knocked once. "Come in." The voice was steady, familiar. He stepped inside. The moment fractured. Dr. Clara Vance stood behind a wide desk layered with surgical reports and anatomical diagrams. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low knot. A white coat hung from her shoulders like armor. Steel lived in her eyes. She did not look surprised. William felt something in his chest stall. "Dr. Vance," he said evenly, closing the door behind him. "I wasn't aware you were leading the surgical team here." "I'm not part of the team, Mr. Montgomery," she replied, straightening a stack of papers with deliberate precision. The air felt thinner. 6 years dissolved in the space between them. Chicago skyline memories. Penthouse glass. The sound of a suitcase zipper closing. William forced a polite nod. "Congratulations. You've done well. I understand you're here regarding the Montgomery wing donation." Her tone was professional, measured. "The board is waiting." He stepped further into the room. The faint scent of her perfume mixed with disinfectant. Clean, controlled, nothing like the chaos he remembered at the end. Before he could respond, the door burst open. 2 small bodies tumbled inside. "Mom," Ethan took my stethoscope again. "I just want to check if Mrs. Peterson's valve sounds different." The words collided with the sterile air. William turned. Dark curls, matching height, identical storm gray eyes. His eyes. He didn't know the twins carried his storm gray eyes. His breath stalled. Clara went rigid. "Children," she said carefully, voice tight. "This isn't a good time." The girl stopped mid-step. She looked at William without fear. Only curiosity. "You have eyes like mine," she observed. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder than before. William felt the floor tilt beneath him. The boy crossed his arms defensively. "Are you the money man?" William blinked. "I what?" "The one giving dollars for the new heart place," the boy clarified. A faint, disoriented smile touched William's mouth. "Yes, I suppose I am." The girl stepped closer. Her gaze searched his face with unsettling familiarity. "Grandma says I have storm cloud eyes." Clara inhaled sharply. "Miss Rivera is waiting in the playroom. Remember?" The twins hesitated. "But," the boy began. "Now," Clara said, gentler but firm. Reluctantly, they shuffled out. The door clicked shut behind them. Silence pressed in. William's pulse thundered in his ears. He looked at Clara slowly. "They're mine," he said. Not a question. Her jaw tightened. "Yes." The word settled like a gavel strike. "How old?" "5." The math slammed into him. 5 years. 3 months. Some number of days he would never get back. "You were pregnant," he said, voice low, rough. "When you left?" "Yes." He stepped back as if physically struck. "Why didn't you tell me?" The old hurt flickered in her eyes, quickly contained. "Would it have mattered?" she asked quietly. "You were convinced I married you for money. You were watching everything collapse and looking for someone to blame." The hum of hospital ventilation filled the space between them. "You looked at me like I was your failure," she continued. "I wasn't bringing children into that." William ran a hand through his hair. The gesture felt foreign in this immaculate room. "I was in a dark place." "You were cruel," she corrected. The word landed without heat. Just fact. He did not deny it. He looked toward the closed door. He could almost see the girl's curious eyes through the wall. Do they know? He asked. They know their father couldn't be part of their lives when they were born, Clara said. A flicker of something softer crossed her face. They know they have his eyes. William swallowed. They deserve to know the truth, he said. They deserve stability. Clara replied. A knock interrupted them. Clara's assistant leaned in. Dr. Vance, the board has been waiting 20 minutes. Tell them we'll be right there, Clara said without breaking eye contact. The door closed again. William exhaled slowly. I just found out I have children, he said. 5-year-old children. 5-year-old children. And whose fault is that? Clara asked, composure cracking for the first time. The words did not accuse. They simply existed. He had no answer. The hallway outside carried distant monitor beeps. Life continuing. Surgeries ongoing. Hearts being repaired. Clara stepped past him toward the door. The board is waiting, she said. We'll discuss what happens next afterward. William followed her into the corridor. White lights stretched ahead. The scent of antiseptic returned, sharp and impersonal, as they walked side by side. 1,000 unfinished conversations pressed against his ribs. He had come to donate millions. He had come to attach his name to a building. Instead, he had discovered that his name already lived in 2 small voices, calling someone else Mom. Nothing would ever be the same again. The boardroom doors closed with a muted click. Mahogany gleamed beneath recessed lighting. A long table stretched toward the windows, where late afternoon sunlight slanted across glass and steel. 12 board members sat poised with tablets and folders, their attention turning in quiet curiosity toward the unexpected pair entering together. William took the seat at the head of the table. Clara remained standing near the presentation screen, one hand resting lightly on a remote control. Her posture was straight, controlled, professional. If her pulse was racing, it did not show. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, voice clear and steady, thank you for your patience. Mr. Montgomery and I were discussing an unexpected matter before this meeting. A few subtle glances passed between board members. William felt them. He had lived his life under scrutiny. This was nothing new, except it was, because for the first time, the stakes were not financial. The administrator launched into the formal presentation. Architectural renderings appeared on screen. The proposed pediatric cardiac wing shimmered in digital perfection, state-of-the-art. Operating rooms, recovery suites, research labs. Clara spoke with calm authority. Her voice carried no tremor. She described surgical equipment upgrades, staffing requirements, and outcome metrics with precise clarity. She referenced mortality reduction percentages and post-operative survival rates, without glancing at notes. William watched her, not as an ex-husband, not even as a donor, but as a man seeing, perhaps for the first time, the full measure of who she had become. She did not need him. That realization struck harder than any accusation she had spoken. A slide shifted to projected patient volume increases. The soft hum of the projector filled the room. Children with complex congenital heart defects require not just advanced technology, Clara said, but continuity of care, emotional stability, dedicated follow-up. Emotional stability. The phrase lodged under his skin. The presentation concluded to polite applause. Questions followed. Clara fielded them effortlessly, never defensive, never flustered. When the discussion quieted, all eyes turned to William. He rose slowly. The Montgomery wing, he began, hands resting lightly against the polished table. His voice was composed, public. But after seeing this vision and understanding more personally what pediatric cardiac care represents, I've decided to double the original donation. A ripple of astonishment swept the room. Clara's gaze flicked toward him, searching. Gasps. Murmurs. Gratitude. It's an investment in excellence, he added evenly. And something else. The board responded with enthusiastic thanks. The administrator looked nearly overwhelmed. William barely heard them, because behind his composed exterior, his mind replayed a single image. Storm gray eyes, 5 years old. He had built companies from nothing, navigated collapses, rebuilt empires, and yet he had missed first steps, first words, first fevers in the night. The meeting concluded in a blur of handshakes and signatures. Papers were exchanged. Legal counsel nodded in satisfaction. When the room finally cleared, silence settled like dust. Clara gathered her tablet and closed it with quiet finality. "You can't buy your way into their lives," she said without turning. William exhaled slowly. "Is that what you think I'm trying to do?" She faced him now. "I don't know what you're trying to do," she answered honestly. "I don't know who you are anymore." That stung more than anger would have. The elevator doors slid open with a soft metallic whisper. They stepped inside. The confined space amplified the quiet tension between them. The faint scent of hospital disinfectant lingered. Overhead lights reflected in mirrored walls. "I just found out I have children," he said, voice lower now, stripped of boardroom polish. "And I just found out their father is back," she replied. The elevator descended. Floor numbers glowed one by one. "I want to see them again," he said carefully. Today, Clara hesitated. The doors opened onto the pediatric floor. Crayon drawings covered the walls. A volunteer pushed a cart of stuffed animals past them. Somewhere down the hall, a child laughed. Life. Immediate. Unfiltered. "They're in the playroom," Clara said at last. "But you don't get to disrupt their world with grand gestures." "I won't." She studied him, searching for arrogance. She found neither. They walked down the corridor together. Through the glass window of the playroom, William saw them. Ethan crouched over a puzzle, tongue pressed against his teeth in concentration. Olivia stood beside a doll-sized examination table, holding a toy stethoscope with solemn importance. Storm gray eyes. He felt it again, that silent impact in his chest. "They don't know what you were like at the end," Clara said quietly beside him. "They don't know about the accusations, the bitterness." He nodded once. "They shouldn't. And if you're going to be part of their lives," she continued, "you earn that place slowly." He looked at her then. "Tell me how." For a moment, the hum of the ventilation system was the only sound between them. Then Clara opened the door. The twins looked up. Olivia's face brightened instantly. "Mom! The money man is back." Ethan squinted at William with open suspicion. "Did you forget something?" William stepped inside the room. Bright walls, sunlight pooling across colorful mats, the faint scent of crayons. "I forgot to say something important," he replied. He knelt down slowly, bringing himself to their eye level. "My name is William," he said gently, "and I'd like to get to know you, if that's okay." Olivia tilted her head. "You already have my eyes," she observed thoughtfully. A soft, involuntary breath escaped him. "Yes," he said, "I do." Across the room, Clara watched carefully. This was no longer about money, no longer about reputation. This was about patience, about earning the right to be called something far more valuable than Mr. Montgomery. The twins exchanged a look only siblings could understand. Then Ethan shrugged. "You can help with the puzzle," he decided. It was not forgiveness. It was not acceptance. But it was a beginning. That night, long after the hospital corridors had quieted and the twins were home with Clara, William stood alone in his penthouse, staring at the city lights. Glass reflected him back in fragments. He had once believed this skyline meant power, control, permanence. Now it felt like distance. 6 years earlier, those same windows had witnessed the unraveling. The memory did not arrive gently. It came sharp. A ringing phone. A cancelled investor meeting. 3 words from his CFO. They're pulling out. The market crash had not been gradual. It had been a cliff. William had stood in the living room, jacket discarded, tie loosened, scotch burning his throat. "They can't do this," he had muttered, pacing. 3 years of expansion, strategic leverage gone because of panic. Clara had emerged from the bedroom still in scrubs, exhaustion etched beneath her eyes. She had worked a double shift that day, blood under her fingernails, healing someone else's child. "We'll figure it out," she had said quietly. He remembered the softness of her voice. He remembered resenting it. "You don't understand," he had snapped. "You didn't build something from nothing." "I'm not trying to compete with you," she had answered. "I'm trying to stand beside you." He had poured another drink. The glass had clinked too loudly against crystal. "Easy for you to say," he'd continued. "You'll always have your hospital, your title. You're insulated. And you think I married you for insulation?" she had asked, incredulous. The accusation had lived in him for weeks before he spoke it aloud. The numbers had been shrinking, investors withdrawing, press speculating. His father's voice, cold and distant, had resurfaced in his mind. "You are nothing without your success." Clara had reached for his hand that night. He had pulled away. "Be honest," he had said, bitterness sharpening his tone. "When this place is gone, when the cars are gone, when the dinners disappear, how long do you stay?" Her expression had shifted then. Not anger, not fear, disappointment. "I stay because I love you," she had replied. "Not because of what you own." But love had felt like weakness in that moment, and he had been drowning. The weeks that followed blurred into tension. Financial meetings, lawyers, quiet dinners, eaten in silence. He had started watching her differently. Every late shift became suspicious. Every text message unexplained became betrayal. The penthouse, once expansive and bright, had begun to feel like a glass cage. One evening, he had found her folding clothes with mechanical calm. A suitcase lay open on the bed. He still remembered the sound of the zipper sliding halfway closed. "So that's it," he had said. "William, 2 years. And you're walking away." "I'm walking away from how you treat me." He had laughed then, not because it was funny, because it was easier than admitting fear. "Perfect timing," he'd said. "Everything collapses, and you abandon ship." "I didn't abandon you," she had replied, tears bright but unshed. "You pushed me away." The truth had hovered in the air. He had refused to touch it. "You think I don't see it?" Her hand had stilled over the suitcase. "Is that really what you think of me?" she asked quietly. He remembered not answering, because answering would have required trust. Instead, he had thrown the final weapon. "Don't expect to come crawling back when I rebuild," he had said. "There won't be a second chance." She had stood then, shoulders squared despite the tremor in her voice. "That's the difference between us," she had said. "You think I'm leaving because of what I'll lose." She placed the final item into the suitcase. "I'm leaving because of what I've already lost." The door had closed softly, not slammed, soft. That sound had haunted him longer than any shouted argument could have. In the weeks that followed, pride had kept him from reaching out. Then the company had collapsed completely. Bankruptcy filings, press headlines, legal negotiations. He had looked for her once. The hospital had said she transferred residency programs, no forwarding address, phone disconnected. And so he had buried himself in rebuilding, convincing himself she had proven him right. convincing himself he was the victim. Standing now in the same living room years later, William felt the weight of what he had refused to see then. She had not left because he failed. She had left because he stopped trusting her. The realization did not explode. It settled, heavy, quiet. Back in her own home that evening, Clara tucked the twins into bed. Ethan had insisted William was good at puzzles. Olivia had declared his eyes match properly. Clara sat on the edge of their shared bed long after they slept. She remembered the suitcase too, remembered packing only what she brought into the marriage, leaving behind jewelry, furniture, gifts, leaving with dignity instead of argument. She had been 6 weeks pregnant. She had known before she left. She had chosen silence, not out of cruelty, out of protection. The hospital monitor beeps of those early prenatal visits still echoed in her memory. Quiet confirmation of life. She had watched those tiny heartbeats alone, and she had told herself she was doing the right thing. Now, 6 years later, fate had closed the circle. He had seen the twins. He had recognized himself in them, and the fracture that once ended a marriage had become the crack through which something else might grow. But fractures do not disappear. They become part of the structure. The question neither of them had answered yet was simple. Could something broken become stronger than it had been before? Or would the old fault lines split open again? Morning light filtered through the hospital's tall glass windows, turning the polished floors into mirrors. Staff moved with quiet urgency. Wheels of gurneys whispered against tile. Somewhere down the corridor, a monitor released a steady, measured beep. William stood near the reception desk outside the executive conference room, reviewing a folder his legal team had prepared. Numbers, architectural projections, finalized donation agreements. Paperwork had always felt safe, predictable. People did not. Through the glass wall, he could see Clara at the head of the table again, speaking with 2 department heads. Her posture was upright, composed. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, others leaned in. There was no trace of hesitation in her authority. He watched the subtle gestures, the way she tapped a pen once before making a decision, the way she met a surgeon's eye directly when disagreeing. This was her world, not the penthouse, not galas, not investor summits. The conference room door opened, and she stepped out. For a moment, their eyes met. No hostility, no softness, just awareness. "The contracts are finalized," she said, voice steady. "The board will announce the expansion next week." William nodded. Good. There was a pause. Hospital air carried faint traces of disinfectant and brewed coffee. "You don't have to attend the internal press preview," she added. "If you prefer distance." The word lingered. "I'll attend," he replied. "This isn't about optics." Her expression flickered slightly, unreadable. "Very well." Before either could say more, a nurse hurried down the hall. "Dr. Vance," she called. "Pediatric or 3. We need you." Clara didn't hesitate. "What's the case?" 8-year-old. "Valve complication." William felt something tighten in his chest. Clara was already moving. "Tell anesthesia I'll be there in 2 minutes." She turned once toward William. "Excuse me." Then she disappeared down the corridor, white coat trailing behind her like a flag. The double doors to the surgical wing swung shut with a soft hydraulic sigh. William stood alone in the hallway. The beeping grew louder near the observation area. Through a narrow glass window above the scrub sinks, he could see the blur of blue gowns, masked faces, surgical lights flooding white over a small body on a table. He had funded entire facilities before. He had never watched a child's life hang in balance. Clara scrubbed in, movements precise and efficient, gloves snapped into place. She entered the operating room without drama. Inside, commands were short: clamp, hold pressure, increase flow. There was no panic in her voice, only control. The monitor's rapid beep stuttered, then steadied. William realized he was holding his breath. Time stretched. Minutes blurred. Finally, the tone on the monitor leveled into a consistent rhythm. The tension in the room eased almost imperceptibly. Clara's shoulders relaxed half an inch. Even from behind glass, he could see it. Life stabilized. She removed her gloves carefully. A nurse handed her a towel. She nodded once to the team before exiting through a separate door. When she emerged into the hallway, hair slightly loosened from its knot, a faint line of fatigue beneath her eyes. She did not see him at first. She spoke quietly with a resident, reviewing follow-up instructions. Her authority here was not inherited. It was earned. William felt something shift inside him. It was not admiration in the romantic sense. It was respect. When she finally turned and noticed him, surprise flickered across her features. "You stayed," she said. "Yes." She studied his face as if trying to gauge his reaction. "That was routine for us," she added. "High risk, but manageable." "It didn't look routine," he replied. She removed her mask, folding it neatly. "Children deserve surgeons who don't flinch." The words were simple. They carried weight. He hesitated before speaking again. "I don't want to interfere with your life here," he said. "With their life." Life. Clara crossed her arms lightly, leaning against the wall. "That depends on how you define interference. I don't want to show up and destabilize everything you've built." "You already have," she answered, not cruelly, just honest. The hallway quieted as staff moved past them. "But," she continued, "that doesn't mean the disruption is entirely negative." That was the first concession she had offered. William absorbed it carefully. "I doubled the donation," he said, "not as leverage." "I know." He blinked. "You do?" Tang. "You wouldn't have waited until the board was present if you were trying to manipulate me privately," she replied. "You made the decision publicly. That matters." A faint echo of something like gratitude passed between them. "But understand this," she added, tone firm again. "Money cannot accelerate trust. I'm not asking it to." Silence settled. Down the hall, a child laughed. A volunteer wheeled a cart of stuffed animals toward a waiting area. Life continued. "I'm taking the twins to the park this evening," Clara said after a moment. "If you'd like to join us." It wasn't warmth. It wasn't forgiveness. It was opportunity. "I would," he answered quietly. She nodded once. 6 o'clock. As she turned and walked away, William remained in the corridor, listening to the steady rhythm of hospital monitors. For the first time, the beeping no longer sounded clinical. It sounded like something else, a reminder that hearts fragile, complex could fail, but they could also be repaired. If the surgeon was steady enough, the park smelled of freshly cut grass and late afternoon sun. Children's laughter rose and fell like wind through trees. A fountain splashed steadily near the walking path, the rhythm softer than hospital monitors, warmer somehow. William stood beside a wooden bench, hands in his pockets, watching Ethan attempt to climb a rope ladder that looked too tall for his small frame. "I've got it," Ethan declared, already halfway up. Clara sat beside William, her posture relaxed but attentive. She never took her eyes fully off the twins. "He's fearless," William said quietly. "He's impulsive," Clara corrected. "There's a difference." Olivia crouched near the sandbox, carefully constructing something with surgical precision, using bright plastic molds. "What are you building?" William asked, stepping closer. "A heart clinic," she replied without looking up. This part is the waiting room. That part is the surgery room. She pressed two red buckets together, forming a crude shape. Does it need funding? He asked, lightly. She finally looked at him. It needs people who know what they're doing. Clara hid a smile. William felt the gentle sting of that answer. Deserved. Ethan jumped down from the ladder and ran toward them, cheeks flushed. Dad! The word landed between them. Dad. Not Mr. Montgomery. Not Money Man. Dad. William's chest tightened. Ethan sprinted back to the climbing structure and executed a dramatic, wobbly jump into a pile of wood chips. He stood up triumphantly, arms raised. 10 points, he shouted. Clara stood instinctively, ready to intervene if necessary. When Ethan proved unharmed, she relaxed again. You'll give your mother a heart attack, William called. Ethan grinned. She fixes hearts. The sunlight filtered through the trees, dappling the ground in gold and shadow. For a few moments, nothing felt fragile. Olivia approached William slowly, brushing sand from her hands. Do you like dinosaurs? She asked with direct seriousness. I'm learning, he replied. Apparently, Ankylosaurus is underrated. Her eyes lit up. You listened. He crouched down to her level. I'm trying. She studied him carefully, as if assessing the sincerity of the statement. Are you staying? She asked. The simplicity of the question cut deeper than any accusation. Clara's gaze lifted sharply. William chose his words with care. I'm not going anywhere, he said. If your mom allows me to be part of things. Olivia nodded once, satisfied. That's good, she said. Because Ethan needs help with puzzles. Across the grass, Ethan had already begun constructing an elaborate obstacle course, using park equipment as imaginary terrain. Clara stood and walked toward him. William followed, maintaining a respectful distance at first. Ethan handed him a stick. You're the dragon, he instructed. I am? Yes. You guard the treasure. What's the treasure? Ethan pointed at Olivia. Her. William glanced at Clara. She met his eyes briefly, something unspoken passing between them. I'll guard carefully, William said. They played until the sun dipped lower, until sweat-dampened shirts and wood chips clung stubbornly to shoelaces. Eventually, Clara checked her watch. Time to go. Groans of protest rose in stereo. 5 more minutes, Ethan pleaded. 3, Clara countered. William leaned down. I'll come again on Wednesday. Ethan paused. Promise? William extended his pinky. Ethan hooked his own around it solemnly. Serious promise, the boy said. Serious promise, William echoed. As they walked toward the parking lot, Olivia slipped her small hand into his without hesitation. The gesture startled him more than any revelation had. Her hand was warm, trusting. He resisted the urge to grip too tightly. Clara unlocked the car and buckled Ethan into his booster seat. William helped Olivia with hers, fumbling only slightly with the latch. You'll get faster, Clara said quietly as she closed the door. I hope so. They stood facing each other across the hood of the car. The air carried the faint scent of distant barbecue smoke and blooming jasmine from nearby gardens. I meant what I said earlier, William began. I don't want to destabilize what you've built. You can't replace what we have, Clara replied evenly. But you can add to it. He absorbed that. Addition, not replacement. I've scheduled a consultation with a family therapist, he added, for all 4 of us. If you're willing, Clara studied him carefully. That's thoughtful, she said after a moment. Send me the information. He nodded. She hesitated, then continued. They've never spent a night away from me. I understand. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not asking. A breeze lifted a strand of her hair. "You're different," she said quietly. "I had to be." She did not argue. The twins began arguing inside the car about who had earned more imaginary treasure points. Clara smiled faintly at the sound. "Wednesday," she reminded him. "I'll be there." He stepped back as she got into the driver's seat. The engine started. As the car pulled away, Olivia pressed her hand against the window in goodbye. William lifted his own in response. The park grew quiet around him. The fountain continued its steady rhythm. He stood there long after the car disappeared from view, feeling something unfamiliar settle inside him. Not triumph, not entitlement, responsibility. For the first time in years, the future did not look like a market graph or a balance sheet. It looked like a rope ladder, unsteady, risky, worth climbing carefully. And this time, he intended to hold on. 3 days later, the penthouse no longer echoed. William stood in what had once been his home office, surveying the transformation with a mixture of uncertainty and resolve. The sleek glass desk was gone. In its place sat two small wooden tables painted a soft sky blue. Low shelves lined the walls, filled with children's books, puzzles, plastic dinosaurs, and a carefully assembled medical toy kit. A faint scent of new wood and unpacked cardboard lingered in the air. Catherine leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised. "You turned your war room into preschool in 72 hours, she observed dryly. William adjusted a miniature chair that looked far too small for his frame. "It's not preschool." "No? It's their space." Catherine stepped inside, examining the labeled bins. Building blocks, art supplies, dinosaurs, medical toys. She glanced at him. "You're overcompensating." He paused. "I'm preparing." "For what?" she asked. "For the possibility that they might feel at home here." She studied him more closely then, less teasing, more curious. "You've never rearranged furniture for anyone," she said. "I rearranged my entire life once," he replied quietly. "This seems minor by comparison." Catherine softened slightly. "Have you told Mother?" "Not yet." She laughed under her breath. "You're afraid." "I want to do this properly," he corrected. "Clara deserves that. So do the children." Catherine walked to the window. The Chicago skyline shimmered beyond the glass. "You still love her." William did not answer immediately. "What I feel doesn't matter," he almost said again. "I'm not trying to win her back," he replied carefully. "I'm trying to be the father they deserve." "That wasn't the question." He ran a hand through his hair. "It doesn't matter," he repeated more quietly. Catherine studied him for a long moment before nodding once. "Just don't confuse redemption with desperation." After she left, the penthouse grew quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. William moved to the hallway, where two small white plaques had been mounted beside a newly painted door. "Ethan, Olivia." He hesitated before turning the knob. Inside, the room was warm in a way the penthouse had never been before. Soft rugs replaced marble floors. The once sterile white walls now held framed illustrations of forests, butterflies, and constellations. A small bookshelf sat beneath the window overlooking the city. The bedspreads were mismatched on purpose, one patterned with dinosaurs, the other scattered with watercolor flowers. He stepped inside slowly. The air felt different, less curated, more alive. His phone vibrated in his pocket. "Clara." He answered immediately. "They're excited," she said, without preamble. "But I need to be clear about something. I'm listening. They're not staying overnight yet. I understand." A pause. "And no overwhelming them with gifts." "I haven't." "I know," she admitted. "I'm not trying to impress them," he replied. "I'm trying to show them they belong." Silence stretched between them. "That's Different, she said finally. I know. He glanced around the room again. I'd like to show you something when you bring them. Another pause. Show me, she said carefully. That evening, when the doorbell chimed, William felt something tighten in his chest. He had faced investors with less apprehension. He opened the door. Clara stood there in dark jeans and a soft blue sweater, the twins bouncing at her sides. We brought our favorite toys, Ethan announced, pushing past him before invitation was complete. Olivia followed, eyes widening at the city view. Whoa! Clara lingered in the doorway, scanning the space with measured attention. You redecorated, she said. A few changes, he replied. Her gaze shifted toward the hallway. He didn't explain. He simply led them. When the twins reached the door with their names on it, they froze. Olivia traced the letters with her finger. That's mine, she whispered. Ethan pushed the door open. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Ethan gasped. Dinosaurs! Olivia walked slowly toward the bookshelf. And butterflies. William remained near the doorway, resisting the urge to narrate. He watched instead. Ethan ran his hand over the bedspread. Is this ours? If you want it to be, William said quietly. Clara stood beside him now. You moved your office, she observed. Yes. For them, yes. She stepped into the room, touching the edge of a shelf. You didn't have to do all this. I know. Ethan flopped onto the bed, testing its bounce. Olivia climbed onto the window seat, staring at the skyline. Can we sleep here? Ethan asked immediately. Clara answered before William could. Not tonight. The disappointment was immediate but brief. Soon? Olivia asked. Clara hesitated. William did not look at her. He kept his focus on the twins. Soon, Clara said finally. William exhaled slowly, careful not to show relief. They spent the next hour exploring the penthouse. Ethan claimed the medical toy kit as a future operating station. Olivia rearranged books in alphabetical order. With fierce concentration, Clara moved through the rooms quietly, taking in the subtle changes. The abstract art was gone. In its place were framed photographs, cityscapes, family moments, quieter scenes. One photo on the mantel caught her attention. It was from years ago. Door County. Wind in her hair. Laughter mid-frame. She did not comment, but William saw her notice. When the twins finally settled on the living room rug with their toys, Clara stepped onto the balcony alone. William followed after a moment. The city air carried the faint scent of river water and distant traffic. You're moving carefully, she said. I'm trying. She studied him. I don't recognize this version of you. He leaned against the railing. Neither did I at first. She did not smile, but she did not pull away either. Inside, Ethan's voice echoed faintly as he declared a plastic stegosaurus, the official guardian of the penthouse. Olivia corrected him. The sound of their bickering drifted outward like something fragile and precious. Clara looked back through the glass doors. They're adapting quickly, she said. Children do, William replied. And adults? He met her gaze. That depends on whether they're willing to. The evening light softened the sharp edges of the skyline. For the first time in years, the penthouse felt less like a monument, and more like a beginning. Saturday morning arrived with the smell of butter and syrup. William stood in Clara's kitchen, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, studying a skillet as if it were a complex financial forecast. Sunlight streamed through the window above the sink, warming the pale wood cabinets and catching faint steam rising from the pan. Ethan sat at the counter, swinging his legs impatiently. Triangles, he reminded seriously. Not squares. I'm aware, William replied. Proper geometry is essential. Olivia leaned over the island, chin resting on folded arms. Mom says you take pancakes very seriously. Clara stood near the coffee maker, watching without interfering. She had expected awkwardness. Instead, the scene unfolded with surprising ease. William flipped the pancake carefully. It landed slightly off-center. Ethan gasped, as if witnessing catastrophe. "It's crooked." William examined it critically. "Structural flaw. I'll compensate." Clara hid a smile behind her mug. The rhythm of the kitchen felt domestic in a way that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Forks clinked against plates. Coffee dripped steadily. Outside, a lawnmower hummed faintly from a neighboring yard. William plated the pancakes with exaggerated precision, slicing each into careful triangles before sliding the plate toward Ethan. "Quality control inspection," he said. Ethan nodded gravely and took a bite. Approval was immediate. Olivia dipped her triangle in syrup, studying William over the rim of her plate. "Are you staying for swimming lessons?" she asked. "If your mother approves." Clara met his eyes across the counter. "You're welcome to join," she said. The invitation was simple, controlled. He nodded. "I'd like that." Swimming lessons meant crowded bleachers and the smell of chlorine. It meant sitting side by side in public, navigating curious glances from other parents who recognized William's face from headlines. Clara had anticipated discomfort. Instead, he kept his focus entirely on the twins. Ethan cannonballed into the pool with reckless enthusiasm. Olivia practiced her backstroke with disciplined precision. "They're very different," William observed quietly. "They balance each other," Clara replied. He glanced at her. "Like we used to." The comment slipped out softer than intended. Clara did not answer immediately. "We're not balancing anything yet," she said finally. "We're stabilizing." Fair. After lessons, the four of them squeezed into a small booth at the neighborhood pancake restaurant the twins insisted was sacred territory. The vinyl seats squeaked. The air smelled of cinnamon and syrup. The elderly waitress greeted Clara by name before eyeing William with curiosity. "And who's this?" she asked cheerfully. Olivia didn't hesitate. "This is our daddy." The words settled naturally into the air. The waitress's eyebrows rose, but she simply smiled. "Well, welcome to Maggie's." William extended his hand politely. "Thank you." Clara watched him navigate the modest setting with no trace of impatience, no subtle discomfort at the worn menus or mismatched plates. He belonged anywhere his children did. Back at her house later that evening, Clara stepped onto the porch as the twins argued inside about whose turn it was to feed the goldfish. William joined her, leaning lightly against the wooden railing. The air carried the faint scent of jasmine from her garden. "I've been researching therapists," he said carefully. "Family specialists. I think guidance would help." Clara nodded slowly. "It would, and I'd like to establish a schedule. Something consistent. Wednesdays and alternate weekends." "You've thought this through." "I've had time." She studied him. "You're not trying to rush anything," she observed. "No, and you're not demanding more." "No." The quiet between them felt deliberate rather than strained. Inside, Ethan's voice rose dramatically. "She fed them too much." Olivia countered with equal force. William smiled faintly. "We should probably intervene." "In a minute," Clara said. The porch swing creaked softly as she sat. He remained standing. "There's something I need to clarify," she continued. He waited. "This is about them," she said. "Not about us." "I understand." She searched his face for defensiveness and found none. "You can't use fatherhood as a path back to me." "I'm not. And you can't disappear again if this becomes inconvenient." "I won't." She held his gaze for a long moment. "You don't know that," she said quietly. He inhaled slowly. "You're right," he admitted. but I know I don't want to. The honesty in that answer disarmed her more than grand declarations would have. Trust rebuilds slowly, she said. I know. She leaned back slightly on the swing. You're different, she said again, as if testing the word. I had to be, he replied. A breeze lifted the edge of her hair. What if the door isn't closed? She asked suddenly. He stilled. What door? The one we shut 6 years ago. He did not move closer, did not reach for her. Are you asking if I want to reopen it? He asked carefully. I'm asking if it's locked, she said. Silence stretched. Inside the house, the twins' argument dissolved into laughter. William exhaled slowly. I don't think it's locked, he said. Just stuck? Maybe. Clara let the swing move gently beneath her. We don't get to experiment recklessly, she said. I know. She looked up at him. If we ever try again, it would be slow. Careful. He nodded. I'm capable of careful now. A faint smile touched her lips. That remains to be seen. Inside, Olivia called out, Mom! Dad! The fish look guilty. William laughed quietly. Duty calls, he said. As they stepped back into the house together, Clara felt the boundaries shift, not collapse, not dissolve, but flex, not closed, not fully open, just enough space for light to slip through. Warm June air settled over the hospital courtyard, carrying the faint scent of fresh mulch and newly planted roses. White chairs lined the lawn in precise rows. A satin ribbon stretched across the entrance of the new wing, its surface gleaming under late afternoon sun. Reporters adjusted cameras. Microphones bore the logos of local news stations. A low murmur rippled through the gathered crowd of doctors, donors, and board members. William stood near the podium, navy suit tailored, posture steady. The plaque beside the doors read in polished silver letters, Montgomery Pediatric Cardiac Wing. Beside him, Clara wore a simple blue silk dress, professional yet understated. The twins stood between them, dressed carefully for the occasion, Ethan tugging at his collar, Olivia clutching a folded program with solemn importance. You don't have to stand so straight, Olivia whispered to William. I'm told it conveys confidence, he murmured back. She nodded as if this made perfect sense. The hospital administrator stepped to the microphone first, offering formal remarks about innovation, expansion, and life-saving technology. Applause rose politely at each mention of generosity. William listened without really hearing. His attention rested on the small hands fidgeting near him, on the quiet strength of the woman beside him. When his name was called, he stepped forward. Flashbulbs flickered. The hum of cameras sharpened. He adjusted the microphone once. For many years, he began evenly. I believed legacy was measured in numbers. The crowd stilled. Revenue growth. Market expansion. Buildings bearing your name. A faint breeze lifted the edge of the ribbon behind him. But I've learned that legacy is quieter than that. He glanced briefly toward Clara, then down at Ethan and Olivia. It's measured in heartbeats. The words landed softly but carried. 2 months ago, I discovered something extraordinary. Not in a boardroom, not in a financial report. A ripple of curiosity moved through the audience. I discovered that I am the father of 2 remarkable children. A collective intake of breath. Cameras shifted direction instantly, lenses turning toward the twins. Ethan straightened instinctively. Olivia tightened her grip on the program, but did not hide. William did not hesitate. I was not present at the beginning of their lives, he continued, voice steady. That absence is something I will carry with humility. Clara's breath caught almost imperceptibly. But fatherhood has redefined what matters to me. He rested a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. This wing is dedicated to every child whose heart requires extraordinary care. and to the families who wait beside them. He looked directly into the crowd of parents seated near the front row, because healing a child's heart is not only a medical act, it is a human one. Silence held for a fraction longer than expected. Then applause swelled, first tentative, then full. Clara watched him carefully. There was no performance in his expression, no calculation, only clarity. The administrator returned to the podium for the ribbon cutting. Ethan leaned closer to William. "Are we famous now?" he whispered. William bent slightly. "No, we're honest." Olivia tugged gently at Clara's hand. "Mom," she said softly, "he said he's our father in front of everyone." Clara swallowed. "Yes," she replied, "he did." The oversized ceremonial scissors were placed into William's hands, but he paused. He looked at Clara. "Would you?" he asked quietly. For a heartbeat, surprise flickered across her face. Then she stepped forward, placing her hand over his on the handle. Together, they cut the ribbon. The satin fell away cleanly. Applause thundered. Cameras captured the image. Surgeon and financier, standing side by side. Children between them, inside the newly opened wing. Sunlight poured through tall windows. Fresh paint carried a faint scent of renewal. Families toured the consultation rooms. Nurses guided small groups through recovery suites, and children pressed curious palms against glass walls overlooking play areas. William lingered near the entrance, greeting donors and shaking hands. Yet his eyes returned again and again to Clara, to the way she explained equipment to a concerned mother, to the way she knelt to speak directly to a nervous child, voice soft but confident. This was her arena. He was not here to overshadow it. Eventually, the crowd thinned. The twins darted ahead toward the mural, painted along one corridor, bright butterflies drifting across a blue sky. "Look!" Olivia exclaimed. "They're coming out of cocoons." Ethan squinted thoughtfully. "Transformation," he declared. William smiled faintly at the word. Clara joined him beneath the mural. "You didn't have to tell them publicly," she said quietly. "I wanted to. There will be questions. I expect them. There may be scrutiny. I deserve that." She studied him carefully, and if the scrutiny turns harsh, he met her gaze without flinching. "Then I'll answer it." For a moment, they stood in shared silence beneath painted wings. The hallway echoed not with monitor beeps, but with laughter and curious footsteps. "Mom," Ethan called from down the corridor, "this place is huge." Clara smiled despite herself. "Yes," she called back. "It is." William looked at her. "I meant what I said," he added softly. "About legacy." "I know," she replied. There was no immediate forgiveness in her eyes, but there was something else. Recognition. The twins ran back toward them, excitement radiating. "Can we come here again tomorrow?" Olivia asked. "You don't need a ceremony to visit," Clara said gently. William crouched down. "This place will always be open to you," he told them. As the four of them walked through the bright corridor together, the polished floors reflected their movement like a quiet promise. Public truth had been spoken. Now came the private work of living up to it. The ceremony ended, but the hospital did not quiet. Families lingered in hallways, some smiling, some tight with fear. Nurses guided visitors gently away from restricted areas. The new wing still smelled faintly of fresh paint and polished floors, layered over the constant sterile undertone of antiseptic. William found Clara near the central nurses' station, reviewing a chart with focused intensity. The twins had been taken to the play area by a volunteer, their laughter echoing faintly down the corridor. "Walk with me?" he asked quietly. She studied his face for a moment, gauging urgency. "All right." He led her down a side hallway not yet crowded with visitors. The lighting softened slightly here, less clinical. Framed photographs lined the walls, children mid-recovery, families embracing, quiet victories captured in still images. They stopped before a door at the end of the corridor. A brushed silver plaque read, "Montgomery Family Consultation Room." Clara glanced at him. "You renamed it." It seemed appropriate. He opened the door. The room inside felt different from the rest of the wing. No bright overhead glare. Instead, warm lamps cast gentle pools of light. The walls were painted a muted cream rather than hospital white. Two comfortable couches faced each other across a low wooden table. A small bookshelf stood in one corner, filled with children's stories and simple guides about heart surgery written for families. Butterfly photographs hung in simple frames along the far wall. Milkweed, monarch wings unfolding. A chrysalis split open in quiet transformation. Clara stepped inside, slowly. "This wasn't in the original plans," she said. "No." He closed the door behind them, muting the corridor noise. When the expansion blueprints were finalized, this space was intended to be another administrative office, he explained. But after everything, I asked the architects to redesign it. "For families," she said softly. "For parents," he corrected gently. She ran her fingers along the back of one couch. "The lighting," she noted. "It's warmer. I didn't want harsh shadows." Her gaze shifted to the butterfly photographs. "The twins chose those," he added. "They said butterflies meant change." Clara's throat tightened unexpectedly. She moved toward the window. It overlooked a small courtyard garden, planted with young trees and white flowers. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked quietly. "I didn't want it to feel performative." She turned to face him fully now. "This room," she said carefully, "will be where parents sit when surgeons walk in with news. I know. Sometimes the news won't be good. I know." Silence settled between them, heavier here than in the bright hallway outside. "This isn't about repairing a reputation," she said. "No, it's about responsibility." "Yes." Her eyes searched his face, looking for ego, for self-congratulations. She found none. Instead, she saw something steadier. "Understanding. When I was pregnant," she said unexpectedly, the words quiet but clear, "I sat in a room like this alone." The confession hovered between them. William felt the air leave his lungs. "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't want you to," she replied. "I thought protecting them meant protecting myself from you." The honesty did not accuse. It explained. He stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "I can't change that," he said. "No, but I can sit in rooms like this now." Her gaze flickered. "With me," he added. The faintest shift passed through her expression. Not surrender, recognition. Outside the closed door, distant laughter carried down the corridor. Life moving forward. Clara glanced once more around the room. "The couches are arranged intentionally," she observed. "Not across a desk. I didn't want barriers." She nodded slowly. "You're learning." "I'm trying." A knock sounded softly at the door. Before either of them responded, it opened a crack, and Olivia peeked inside. "There you are!" she exclaimed. "We found the butterfly room." Ethan appeared behind her, breathless. "It smells different in here." "It's for families," William said gently. Olivia walked toward the couch and bounced experimentally. "Soft," she approved. Ethan examined the bookshelf. "Why are there books about being brave?" Clara stepped forward and knelt beside him. "Because sometimes people need help finding courage," she explained. Ethan considered this seriously. "Like when you jump off the high dive?" he asked. "Something like that," she said. William watched them together. The room felt less symbolic now, more real. Olivia climbed onto the couch beside him and leaned against his arm without hesitation. Are we going to sit here a lot? She asked. Only if we're helping someone, he replied. She nodded, satisfied. Clara rose slowly. Her eyes met his across the soft light of the room. You didn't have to create this, she said quietly. Yes, he answered. Not for publicity, not for image, for understanding, for atonement, for presence. The twins darted toward the door again, eager to explore the garden outside. Come on, Ethan called. Clara moved toward them, then paused briefly beside William. I don't know what we are, she admitted softly. Neither do I. But this, she gestured subtly around the room, matters. I know. She held his gaze a second longer than before. Then she followed the children out into the hallway. William remained inside for a moment, alone in the warm light. The hospital beyond continued its steady rhythm footsteps, distant pages, the muted beeping of monitors. He looked once more at the butterfly photographs on the wall. Change did not erase what came before. It grew through it. He turned off the lamp nearest the couch and stepped back into the corridor, ready to join them. Autumn arrived quietly. Leaves gathered along the edges of Clara's driveway in amber and gold. The air carried a coolness that hinted at change without demanding it. Wednesday dinners had become routine. Alternate weekends no longer felt experimental. Therapy sessions unfolded with careful honesty. Not dramatic revelations, but steady conversations about boundaries, trust, and consistency. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. That was the difference. William stood at Clara's stove, stirring a pot of tomato sauce, while Ethan and Olivia set the table with uneven determination. The kitchen smelled of garlic and basil. Soft music played from a speaker near the window. Dad, you're stirring too fast, Olivia said critically. It's an enthusiastic stir, he replied. Clara leaned against the counter, arms folded loosely, watching the scene unfold with measured calm. She had not surrendered her caution. She had adjusted it. Dinner was imperfect and loud. Ethan spilled water. Olivia corrected him. William burned one slice of bread and attempted to salvage it with unnecessary optimism. Clara laughed before she could stop herself. The sound startled them all. It had been a while since laughter came without weight. Later, after dishes were stacked and homework supervised, the twins curled together upstairs, arguing softly about which stuffed animal deserved prime pillow placement. The house settled into evening quiet. William stepped onto the porch, hands in his coat pockets. The wooden swing creaked gently when Clara joined him. A faint scent of jasmine lingered in the cool air. They're comfortable with you, she said, after a moment. I'm grateful. You haven't missed a Wednesday in 2 months. I won't. She studied his profile in the dim porch light. You don't make promises lightly anymore. No. A car passed slowly down the street, headlights gliding across the yard. Silence stretched comfortably between them. You've changed, she said, not as an accusation this time. I've had to examine parts of myself I ignored, he replied. Pride, control. And they were louder than they should have been. She nodded. In therapy, she added quietly, you didn't defend yourself when Dr. Kaplan asked about the past. There wasn't anything to defend. The honesty in that answer softened something in her chest. For a long time, she said, I thought protecting the twins meant keeping you out. He did not interrupt. I still don't regret leaving, she continued. But I don't feel the same anger anymore. He turned toward her slowly. What do you feel? She considered the question carefully. Cautious, she said. Curious. He absorbed that with visible restraint. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. And I'm not asking for the past to disappear. I wouldn't trust you if you did. A faint smile touched his lips. The porch light cast gentle shadows across the yard. Wind stirred the fallen leaves. Friday, she said suddenly. He looked at her. Dinner, she clarified. Just us. His breath paused, not from shock, but from understanding the weight of the invitation. I'll be there, he said quietly. This isn't a promise of anything, she added. I know. It's a conversation. That's enough. Inside the house, a soft thud sounded upstairs, followed by whispered giggles. Clara glanced toward the sound instinctively. They sleep better when you read to them, she said. I do different voices, he admitted. I've noticed. Another quiet settled. Do you ever think about what might have happened if things hadn't fallen apart? She asked. Yes, and I think we would have avoided becoming who we needed to be. She looked at him then, searching for regret. I regret hurting you, he added. I know, she replied. That was new, not absolution. Acknowledgement. He reached for the edge of the swing but did not reach for her. Boundaries remained, but they no longer felt like walls. The front door opened suddenly. Ethan appeared, hair tousled, eyes half closed. Are you guys talking about boring stuff? He asked. Extremely boring, William assured him. Good. Ethan yawned. Just checking. Clara laughed softly and stood, back to bed. Ethan shuffled inside obediently. William remained on the porch a moment longer. The night felt different now. Not heavy with unfinished tension. Not bright with unrealistic hope. Steady. Clara paused in the doorway. You coming? She asked. He met her gaze. Yes. As he stepped inside, the house wrapped around them with quiet warmth. Upstairs, two small voices murmured sleepily before fading into silence. Clara turned off the porch light. Darkness settled gently outside. Inside, the hallway lamp cast a soft glow. They did not hold hands. They did not make declarations. But when they walked down the hall toward the stairs, they walked side by side, not as strangers, not as who they used to be, but as two people choosing, carefully, to see what might grow from the fracture. Some doors do not swing open all at once. Sometimes they shift slowly on repaired hinges, and sometimes that is enough.